very tightly. So I just want to go over some of the benefits. A lot of clients don't know where to start. So if we have a sort of a friendly landlord, they feel a little more comfortable applying for housing. Often they don't know how to explain the program or can't advocate for themselves as well as they would like. So it makes them feel a little bit more comfortable. We're dealing with a lot of barriers, a very high barrier population. Like I said, they're at or below 30%, and often they're below 30%. How it works is our TANF program, and that makes them at like 12%. I mean, it's pretty bad. And that's a lot of our participants. They're welfare to work, they're getting employment. A lot of people have evictions. It's the Bay Area. They ended up homeless, many because they got evicted. They have credit debts. We have a really high population of undocumented immigrants. We're a sanctuary city, so they flock to San Francisco. And then they have very low incomes, they're not documented, they have no credit. We're dealing with all those kinds of things. It helps also when we have friendly landlords to sort of assist clients in advocating for themselves. So often they'll feel more comfortable talking to landlords that have a relationship with us, as opposed to ones that do not. Landlords that know the program already, landlords that talk to us regularly, they feel a little bit more comfortable than just market rate landlords out there that are, it's business. It can be daunting for them. And the last point here is that sometimes it's the only options. And right now, because of the tech boom, people are finding housing at a slower rate. And what I've noticed in the last several months is mostly everybody that's come back with housing is from a landlord we've worked with before. So rarely in the last 3 to 6 months have I seen a new landlord. So this is literally the only way people are finding housing. So like I was saying, I started a new housing program, and then I've also built and ramped up an existing program. So you all may be at various points in these in your programming. So I just wanted to hit on a couple points: how to find the landlords, or bulking up your landlord list, how to communicate, what do they need to know, and walking the fine line between partner and housing advocate, and then maintaining the relationships after you've established them. So who do you know already? So when I was a housing case manager, I literally just sat down on Craigslist and looked at who's the units open. One family, this is their specific situation, what fits that. And then from there, talking to those landlords, cold calling, really just talking to landlords, going out with people. That's a really successful tactic when it's a new landlord, going with the family, making that relationship at the beginning, and then you probably never have to go out there again. You can call them up, I'm Keely, you remember me, we have another family, do you have units open, that kind of thing. It really helps initially when they're brand new. Also, a lot of clients will go out and find landlords and come back and be like, they're interested in the program, talk to them. We send them with letters, very official letters, if this is the program, or all the support services, financial assistance, and our contact information. Often, families don't have the advocacy skills to go and explain this type of thing thoroughly, and landlords get somewhat sketched out by someone's going to be paying my rent. So it's a very nice letter, it explains our services and all our contact information. And that's really, a lot of times, the first contact. And they'll call us with questions, and we start that relationship, and we really want to keep up the communication. The beginning is the most important part. We discovered, this is not a surprise, that when you make friends with property management companies or property managers, you have access to many more units. So we started off very individual, especially in San Francisco, in the city. We're dealing a lot with private landlords, people that own houses and rent out their in-laws, or people that are just a private person that owns a couple units. Some of the mom and pop landlords are our best allies. They're the people you can pull on their heartstrings. You don't even want to help his family, give them a second chance. Sure, you can gouge other people for rent, but don't you want to work with our program? So really kind of guilting people into it, and that's been really successful because there's a lot of really good people that own property in San Francisco. There's a lot of really mean and greedy landlords too. So when there's some nice old people, we don't want to take advantage of them, and we explain all the programs, and they want to give people a chance. They're the ones that really want to help people. Like, yes, let's give this family a chance. So property managers too, though, we've had a lot of success with some property managers. There's a few in San Francisco, and I have to say there's a couple that have not raised their rents, and I do have to point them out a lot. Like, most are companies over here not gouging people for rent. They're still running to clients in our program. They're great. Work with them. A lot of East Bay, we call the East Bay, it's Oakland, it's Berkeley. A lot of property management companies who manage multiple units for multiple owners. So that's been really successful. They're sort of tied to what the owner's eligibility criteria for the buildings. So it's great to have those allies. They can't always be as flexible. So the private landlords that actually own the buildings can be more flexible. They can forgive evictions, debts, that type of thing. Partnerships with local affordable housing providers. I threw it out there. Kathy was talking about wait lists. We do nothing but wait lists. We navigate wait lists. There's wait lists for everything at this point. I was talking about Section 8 is not an option. That wait list has been closed for 15 years because it got to be 10 years long. The public housing, the project-based wait list closed in 2010 because it got to be 10 years long. So if anybody wasn't on those wait lists to begin with, they cannot get them on now. So we play a game of all the affordable housing providers run their own wait lists. It's the game, getting on as many wait lists as we can, and trying to navigate that. It's not rapid. It's not our solution to rapid rehousing. We do it a lot, though. We have a lot of really great nonprofit affordable housing providers that are our partners. But sometimes it can be rapid. If people have been on wait lists already, then we definitely help navigate that and get them in there. And really, one of the biggest takeaways I think you should all really think about is how to centralize. Once you have this information, how does it not leave with the staff that did all the legwork? You know, how do you centralize it, institutionalize it in your programs? And we saw from the very beginning, like, well, if there's one staff person went out and made all these great connections, and then they leave, you know, how do we know what they did and all their work? So we really tried from the beginning. We're putting our landlord contact information into our database. We're keeping sort of server documents with all this information updated. We're making sure to pass it on when people leave, pass it on to the new case managers, just really with the continuity and institutionalizing it, because you don't want those relationships, because it can be a lot of work to build them, and then if, you know, they go by the wayside, it's sort of a tragedy. Communicating with landlords. So like I was saying, upfront is really important. So the upfront communication is probably the most important. You're pitching the program, you're pitching the client. And like I said, you're pulling on people's heartstrings a lot. You know, well, don't you want to give them a second chance? Don't you want to help people get back on their feet? And then it's hard to say no to that. So we also explain a lot about the services. You know, they're going to get case management. The people are typically in our program for about a year, so they get at least a year of support services. The financial assistance, that's Kathy was talking, money talks. So we're paying deposits, we're paying shallow monthly rental subsidies. We have an eviction prevention program. Landlords love to hear the words eviction prevention when it's tied to money. They know if something happens, if they get into trouble, we can pay money so you don't have to evict them. They love that, because evictions are terrible for them. They cost them money. It's a lot of headache for them. So knowing that we can save them from eviction, or often we're talking people just into moving out rather than getting evicted, they appreciate that too, because they don't want to go through the eviction process. So if things are going disastrously, we'll try to help people just move out and not get evicted. But it's really money. Money talks. When we had our HPRP program, we were just throwing money out the door. We can pay 2 or 3 times the deposit. People have bad credit. Landlords can charge up to 3 times the deposit. In San Francisco, this can be to $3,000 to $5,000. Like, it's an insane amount of money. So we're sometimes patchworking assistance together. But when we had HPRP money, we had a lot of money to put up. We paid deposits, first month's rent, shallow monthly rental subsidies, you know, eviction prevention on the other end if we need it. That went a long way. And as Kathy was saying, the time and the money too is like the quicker you can really get money out the door, the happier they are. It is a process. We have to explain that to them. We have a fiscal department needs to go through the chain of command. It does help when they talk to the fiscal department if anything goes wrong with the checks. They do like to talk to people who cut the checks. It is very important. And knowing that we have a fiscal department that is responsive to their needs really helps a lot too. And again, with the issues, timely communication and follow-up around any issues. Now, I have to say, I work with the fiscal department to get hundreds of checks out every month. We're human and we make mistakes. So the first couple times that checks got missed, panic, right? You call the landlord, oh my God, I made a mistake. They don't really care that much. And it's me and the program director, I screwed up, your check's on the way. Fine, that's cool. So I was really surprised at how many landlords were really receptive to like, oh, we made an admin error, we're sorry, your money's on the way. As long as you tell them the money's on the way, they almost never cared. The client saying that might be a little bit different. So timely, you know, right away when something happens to call them, and then following up, calling them back, making sure things got resolved. They really appreciate that even if it did get resolved, if they call you with a client issue, it ends up working itself out before you call them back. They like that you called them back, that you followed up and you wanted to make sure everything got resolved and there was nothing more that needed to be done. And then, like I said before, walking the fine line between landlord partner and housing advocate. We have a variety of landlords. Now, landlords that rent to people with bad credit, evictions, and no money can sometimes be slightly slumlordy. So we're walking a fine line, right? We need the housing stock. We need people to have adequate housing. So balancing those can be a struggle. But what we do is we try to first, help the client communicate with the landlord appropriately. That's the first thing. So getting things in writing, respectful requests. If that goes nowhere, we really want the client to advocate for themselves with the landlord so they can build that skill of talking to their landlord, getting things resolved. Often the landlord will call us, we talk to the client, coach the client on how to talk to the landlord and really try to make that connection so that they're not always turning to us, because we're not always going to be there. And we don't want to be their problem solvers forever. We want them to learn how to solve their own problems. However, some landlords are more difficult to work with. We have had to step in. Often when we step in, hey landlord, what's up with this whatever problem? Sometimes just knowing that a third party's paying attention goes a long way and things get resolved. There have been instances where they haven't gotten resolved, and then what we do, and this has been successful because we have a really strong advocate community in San Francisco, so we can refer our clients and hook them up with an actual housing advocate. It takes the burden off of us being the person in there, like getting them in trouble, and then it's this other party. Like, we're still sending you money, but they're getting BPH out there and citing you for all these violations. So we can still kind of be the good guy. They've often figured out that we're the ones who got the housing advocate. It's neither here nor there, but it hasn't actually soured all of the, I can only think of really one that it really went south, and because the Department of Public Health had to get involved, and it got so much bigger than us, and it was probably terrible anyway. We really can't subsidize substandard housing, though, and that's the point, and that's what we need to keep making sure, and that gets tricky. Like, figuring out what is substandard, like how many problems, and to what degree can problems be solved. And like Kathy said, they're in business. They don't want to spend a lot of money if they don't have to. So we walk that fine line. We try to keep them on our side. There's been ones that we don't want on our side. I mean, just to be honest, there's landlords that we don't want to work with because they're just terrible. But, and unfortunately, we keep finding them because the housing market is so tight and people come up with very creative solutions. Keeping the lines of communication open is really, really important. Like I was saying before, really keeping all parties involved. The landlord can be an ally. We've had client issues. Clients relapse, go MIA. If our landlord's a partner, we call them, hey, have you seen them? How are they doing? Do they still have their kids? Landlords can go knock on their door if they're on site. They'll knock on the door and check on people for us. So that's been really useful in that partnership. Problems can be addressed a lot earlier when you have this kind of constant communication before they escalate into some disaster situation that you can't get out of. So we can really mitigate a lot of things before they turn terrible. And like I said, we have an eviction prevention program, so we can figure out how to get some money thrown at it too, if that's all that it needs. And often money goes a long way. So maintaining the connections once you've made them. And we've been struggling with this. We kind of go in and out of new ideas. We were sending Christmas cards for a while. That seemed popular. Thanks, landlords. You've been such great partners. We also realized we could send them our annual reports. They like to see how they are a part of something bigger. So, Hamilton Family Center, we end homelessness. And they know that they're a part of that. And so when we give them flashy flyers with lots of graphs, and they know that they're a part of that, and they know they're contributing to some bigger community cause. And like I said, you've already pulled on their heartstrings. They already want to be a part of the solution. So really fostering that and keeping that up and making sure they know they are part of the solution and that they're a really important partner. And it makes them feel very, special, and they will keep running to us and not keep raising their rents. Fair practices and efficient financial processes. So we try to be fair. We realize clients have issues. We really try to be objective. Landlords appreciate that. We're in the process of trying to talk some family out of moving so the landlord doesn't have to evict them. They probably will evict them, but I don't think we've soured the relationship because they can see that we've made an honest effort and we've been working really hard to try to get this family just to move out. And they see that and they appreciate that and they know we can't control people's behavior. Sometimes they don't know we can't control people's behavior. So we have those landlords too that call us and like, can't you make them stop being so loud? No. Or, whatever the behavior issues are. And then the consistent communication through challenges is really the most important part, and that's what I was just talking about. They value that hard work, and they see that you're trying to make things really work out for everybody, even if they don't work out for everybody. So we've been able to salvage a lot of landlord relationships with just pure communication, even if money is far past a problem or money can't solve it. But our sort of constant and consistent follow-up goes a long way. So like I quoted myself here, I think that's possibly a little weird, but knowing that you care about a problem, working to find a facility.
Let's take a vote on that.
It really does go a long way though. I mean, that's what I'm saying, so we've salvaged landlord relationships that could have gone south, really south. But just communicating with them, maybe they're angry for a couple of days, they get over it, and then they're sending us their vacancy listings again. So that has been really the only way that we've been able to do our rapid rehousing in such a tight housing market. I'm sure there's lots of other things I didn't cover. So if you guys have questions at the end, I will be happy to take them.